It's a problem that millions of families face every single day. The crushing cost of childcare. Everyone agrees it's a crisis, but the moment the conversation turns to solutions, a deep, ideological divide appears. The core question is this: is massive government spending on childcare a wise investment in our future workforce? Or is it a fiscally reckless move that will pour gasoline on the fire of inflation? This isn't just a theoretical debate. It's a battle over the fundamental role of government in the economy and in our lives. Let's look at the key exchange that reveals everything.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it's Rowan.
Your employees have trouble finding affordable child care.
That's correct.
What do you think we ought to do about the problem?
Well, as I said in my introductory opening, there have been solutions over the years. My mother was involved in an organization that created a nonprofit child care operation. It worked on pay by need. It did have it used funds from the United Way, which were charitable funds. But I also believe that it needs more government funding to keep the economic model for as
You
Melissa was
think the
explaining.
American taxpayer needs to subsidize child care?
I believe if correctly explained, the American taxpayer would understand that an investment by the government in good child care would dramatically improve the economic condition of all of our small businesses and corporate businesses to the point where we would have a bigger, larger workforce, which would be more productive, more stable, and everybody would benefit. So the value of the investment, as a business owner, I understand investment. The value of that investment would be far greater than the cost of it today. And if explained properly to the American public, they would understand.
How many employees do you have?
I run between 50 and 75 to 85.
Okay. What does a starting employee make in your company?
2 years ago, $9 an hour.
How about,
Today, about $12 an hour. Minimum wage in Pennsylvania is $7.25.
so the starting pay for a person in your company
Today, when they walk
is
in,
$12 an hour.
that's what I have to be paying to get somebody.
Well, of course they can't afford health care. Child care.
Are you insinuating I'm
How
paying too
much
little?
money did you take out of your company last year? What was your salary?
My personal salary was $100,000.
Okay. Did you take out any money? And are you an LLC?
I'm a subchapter S corporate.
Okay, you're a sub S. So you
Yes.
took out some. In addition to your salary, you had to pay taxes. So presumably you took out profits. How much did you take out there?
My company lost over $300,000 last year. And
Okay. So your total take from your company was $100,000.
actually, my total take, because as a subchapter S, my business income is my income,
Right.
was negative $200,000.
Okay. So you had is that aberrational or does that?
I hope so.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, it is. The last-
Pre-pandemic, how much did you take out?
My my average over, say, a 25-year period of time for my company has been somewhere between the profit for the company, that is then we pay taxes on, has been somewhere between $45,000 and maybe $150,000 to $200,000.
Okay. Well, look, I'm not trying to pick on you, and congratulations on having a family business. Let me just give you this point of view. Of course, child care is too expensive. Everybody up here wants less expensive child care. Mm-hmm. Everybody up here supports children in prosperity, too. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a rational way to go about it. It's probably not the way Congress will go about it, but it is a rational way. There's some things you can't quantify. You can't quantify the self well-being of having a job. I don't care how much money government gives you. Mm-hmm. You can't quantify the feeling of self-worth that a person receives from being gainfully employed and supporting his or her family and being a meaningful part of his community. Follow me here.
Senator, I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
I've been in my business for over 45 years. I'm in a small business community. I know every one of my employees, and I can quantify with them, when I look them in the eye, what a good job means.
Right.
And I watch them cry when they can't come to work because they don't have childcare.
I understand. So there's a part of this you can't quantify, in my opinion. I meant what I said earlier. A person without a job is not healthy, that person's not happy, and that person is not free. And yeah, government can give you a cell phone, but you're going to feel much better about yourself if you earn the money to buy a cell phone. Okay? There is a part of this you can quantify. A rational approach, therefore, would be to say, okay, if government subsidized the cost of child care in America, what would that mean in terms of GDP? How many additional people would go to work? How many fewer lost my child is sick days would we have in America? What would be the impact on productivity? All that can be quantified. And you take that number, the cost, or the benefit rather, and you compare it to the cost. And if the benefit substantially outweighs the cost, you would go forward. The question would then become, how do you pay for it? Well, if we say this is a priority, a meaningful place to start, if you respect taxpayer dollars, and we all do, is to say, okay, we're going to comb through our budget. We're going to basically scrub our budget before we just go borrow more money and try to find out what in our current budget is a lower priority than affordable child care. We never do that. Mm-hmm. We never do that. I mean, we just don't do that. Neither side does that. When we put together a budget, Mr. Bowen, we don't do it like you do at your business. Our fight over a budget is how much extra money we're going to give to the bureaucracy every year. We don't have any metrics. In the real world, if you're doing a lousy job, you get fired. In government, if you're doing a lousy job, it must mean that you don't have enough money, so we give you more money. That's the way it works. Let me just finish my thought. So that would be a rational play. And then once we really try to scrub the budget and find the money, then if it's not enough, given our other competing priorities, we could talk about, well, is this something that we ought to add on an operating expense and borrow money? That would be a rational way. But that's not what is before us. What is before us, let me just take the President's Build Back Better plan. You know what the child care provisions in that would cost? $75 billion a year. What do you think that's going to do to inflation? And that's not $75 billion that we could find by scrubbing the budget. That's not touching the budget. Nobody wants to touch the budget. We just want to add to it. We don't even have 5% of $75 billion. We got to go borrow that. Do you see the problem? I don't think anybody has, at least I don't have, a problem with the end result, with the objective here. But the answer is not just to say, oh, okay, we'll just add $75 billion a year extra to our operating account based on the assumption that all the money we're spending right now is well spent, and yeah, we'll just borrow more. That's not the answer. And it wasn't the answer before inflation, but let me tell you what will happen right now if we go past Build Back Better. And there's some good things in Build Back Better. You know the impact of that on inflation? You think 8.5% inflation is high? Get ready for 15% inflation. And that's the problem. Anyway, that's the end of my speech.
You mentioned that in a small or in business, we don't do things like government, and that's very true. I might have lost money last year, but then make a decision this year to spend $50,000 on a piece of equipment that I can't afford, so I have to borrow for it. But I know that that $50,000 worth of equipment will make $300,000 worth of equipment or products that I will make $50,000 in profit. So I will pay for that piece of equipment in 1 year and then own that equipment for 10 years and make $50,000 every year after that. So I make $500,000 because I make an investment that is the correct one at the right time. It's not.
I bet you the first thing you do, though, is you don't just assume that you need to go borrow the money to buy that equipment. The first thing you do is sit down with your operating budget and see if you can't find a place to cut. That's the first thing you do.
We do that all the time, absolutely.
Well,
and I agree with you.
We don't. We don't. And that's the problem.
The senator's strategy here is incredibly precise. He isn't arguing that childcare is unimportant. Instead, he systematically dismantles the method proposed to pay for it. He opens by asking about the business owner's company, his starting wages, and his personal income. This isn't a personal attack. It's a strategic framing device. By establishing the witness as a fellow business person who understands budgets, profits, and losses, the senator sets a trap. He's positioning himself to say, you as a business owner wouldn't run your company this way, so why should the government? When he brings up the subchapter S corporate structure, he's showing his homework. It's a technical detail, but it's crucial. It means the company's profits and losses pass directly to the owner's personal tax return, allowing the senator to see the full financial picture and corner the witness on his company's recent $300,000 loss. This entire exchange highlights three critical themes. First, the conflict between viewing a program as an investment versus an expense. The business owner argues that spending on childcare is like buying a new piece of equipment. It costs money up front, but generates a massive return later through a more stable and productive workforce. The senator, however, frames the president's plan not as a targeted investment, but as a $75 billion annual operating expense slapped onto the national credit card. Second, the theme of fiscal discipline. The senator repeatedly points out that in the real world, businesses and families must cut spending in one area to afford something new in another. He argues Congress never does this. They simply borrow more money, a process he paints as fundamentally unserious and irresponsible. Third, and perhaps most urgently, is the theme of inflation. The senator argues that injecting another $75 billion of borrowed money into the economy each year will inevitably make inflation worse, potentially pushing it from 8.5% to 15%. This, he implies, is a hidden tax that hurts the very families the program is meant to help. This hearing is a perfect microcosm of the biggest debate in all of public policy. What is the government's role in the economy? On one side, you have the argument for public investment. Think of it like a government building a highway or a bridge. It costs a huge amount of money, and it's paid for with taxes or debt, but it creates the conditions for economic growth that benefit everyone for decades. Proponents argue that affordable childcare is modern infrastructure, just as essential as roads or the internet for a healthy 21st century economy. On the other side is the argument for fiscal restraint. Think of the national budget like a household budget. If you're already deep in debt, you don't take out another massive loan, even for something you really want. You either find a way to earn more, or you cut back on other expenses. This side argues that with a massive national debt, the government has lost the luxury of borrowing for new programs, and that the resulting inflation from all this spending is like a hidden tax on every single citizen, making groceries, gas, and housing more expensive for everyone. So, what are the key takeaways from all of this? First, the central conflict is not about the importance of childcare. It's about the financial consequences of the proposed solution. Both sides agree on the goal but violently disagree on the method. Second, how you frame the spending as a long-term investment or a short-term inflationary expense determines your entire position. The business owner sees a 10-year return. The senator sees next year's inflation numbers. Finally, The exchange reveals a profound public frustration with how the government manages money. The senator's most powerful point is that Congress refuses to scrutinize its own budget and cut lower priority items before borrowing more for new ones, a practice that would bankrupt any private business or family. Ultimately, this leaves us with a difficult question. At what point does a critical social need justify going deeper into debt? And when does the risk of inflation and long-term financial instability become too great to ignore? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this analysis helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video.